Welcome back to Robert's Reviews. I got a haircut, and today we're talking about The Endless. The Endless was made in 2017. It was directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. It was written by Justin Benson, and it starred both of them. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I will give a brief overview of this movie, and I will tell you what I thought, because I think it's a really cool and original movie. I'm really excited to talk about this. I literally finished this movie like 5 minutes ago, so I'm really excited to talk about it. I have no one to talk about it because I don't know if anybody else has watched it, but I'm going to talk to myself about it all night. So, sorry, my throat felt weird. It was weird. Anyway, this movie, the idea around it, is that these kids escape this UFO suicide cult, or so they are called, and then, 40 years later, they get, a video telling them to come back, and for some reason they do, and then they discover weird things that are going on in the camp. That's the whole premise. I do want to talk about the rating real quick. It is rated TV mature. That's ridiculous, in my opinion. I think it was rated that for some slight profanity, and some slight horror things. I guess there's quite a bit of suicide. It's not that bad. I've seen far worse that have the same rating. This one, I would probably let my 16-year-old watch this. Maybe even 15. Just because it doesn't suggest anything at all. Which I think is nice because, you can show it to younger people, and it's a scary movie you can show to younger people. I don't think this is particularly scary at all, actually. I was only scared once, and it was only because of the music. It had nothing to do with anything else. There are a couple of jump scares that are kind of interesting because there shouldn't be jump scares in a movie like this. This is a sci-fi movie, and I do not generally, as a rule, like sci-fi movies. But I like this one, and I'll tell you why. This one was very original in the fact that they approach things in a different way. It's more of a mystery movie than anything else. Like the movie I saw a couple years ago with my brother, Arrival, I believe it was called. It's nothing like Arrival at all, but it had the same originality that Arrival had, because Arrival took this alien movie and made it so that we could try to understand aliens, and this one made it so that it was a mystery novel-esque kind of thing. I felt very confused and quite annoyed, honestly, for the first half hour of this film, which you don't want your audience to do. If I was in a movie theater, this would have been a lot better, and here's why. Because if I start watching something and if I'm not hooked in within the first 15 minutes, I'm bored. I'm disengaged. I don't want to be disengaged. But if I'm watching them on Netflix, it is so easy to hit the escape button, hit the back button, scroll up to continue watching, and press play on The Office. It is so easy. And that is a big problem that I think that the platform itself has, is that it's hard to get engaged with certain things, especially if you're like me, who doesn't really particularly enjoy sci-fi. So for the first half hour, I was not into it at all. I was okay, they're brothers, I guess. They're fine. They don't really like each other. And then for some reason, and this is a pretty big negative for me, they just talk each other into going back to this horrific suicide camp that they escaped when they were younger. What? No, you can't tell me that they did that. You can't tell me that they did that. There's no way. There's no goddamn way. So that was distracting. There's a slight spoiler right here. It's not crazy spoiler because I figured it out pretty soon. They don't flat out tell you until about 45 minutes out from the end of the movie. So about halfway through. Um, but I figured it out like within the first half hour because I'm a big brain. So what happens in this camp that they go to, the suicide camp, is this weird thing that they just call it. Um, Essentially watches over them and then waits for them to kill themselves, or it kills them, and then they're stuck in a time loop for all of eternity. Um, so that was kind of weird when I figured that out. I figured it out earlier than I think most people would, but I was when I figured it out, I was like, "Oh, that's really cool! What a cool idea!" And then that kind of disappointed me because we only really got to see a lot of that for the last like 45 minutes of it, which is fine. The last 45 minutes of this film are the reason why I like it. If I'm honest with you, is the first like 45 minutes are kind of boring, and a lot of that had to do with the acting, which I'll get into in a little bit. Yeah, I just wasn't interested in the characters at all. By the end of the movie, I still wasn't interested in the characters at all. Couldn't give a damn about either of them. But the idea is so cool, and I think that the end of the movie was very well executed. Because I think that could have gone wrong in so many ways, and it could have screwed up the entire production. But I think that it was actually a pretty good ending. Excuse me. I need to get a bottle of water, but I'm reviewing. So I think that in order to watch this movie, you have to have some kind of patience. I don't have patience. I did it for you guys because I promised you I would do it. It's right here on this little sticky note. It says right here. You can't really read it. It says The Endless. And so I'm doing it for you guys. And I do want to say that, if you have the patience for it, this movie will pay off. I mean, the ending of this movie is really solid. And there's a character in this show. It's a movie. There's a character in this movie that I really enjoy. And I really enjoyed watching. He didn't get enough screen time, in my opinion. But he was really interesting and really cool. And I'll talk about him in a little bit. But that kept me interested after the first half hour when we get to see this character. And we see this character for a little bit. The events in this film are a little weird in terms of order and time. I think they cut quite a lot out of this movie. I bet this movie was probably like 2.5 hours long when they first filmed it, because there's some stuff kind of missing, and there's some stuff that I desire more of. And I think that if there was a director's cut, that'd be pretty cool. That being said, it was long. It was almost 2 hours long. And I think the main issue that I had was the first half hour of it. After that, I was pretty engaged for the most part. I was ready to see what was going to happen because I had picked up on what was going to happen. If I didn't pick up on what was going to happen, I would have been bored probably for the first hour and 15 minutes onto the last 45 minutes. Which is a problem if your audience is watching on Netflix, which, by the way, this is on Netflix. So you can go watch it right now if you'd like. And so my issue, that was literally my only issue, was like the first half an hour and the acting all the way through, which is a pretty big hit for me. But I give credit where credit is due. And the idea behind this film is awesome. And at the end of the movie, I said, wait, what next? That's great for me. I love it when I can end a film and be like, wait, what's next? I'd love to see, like, I don't want to say a whole movie, because I don't. I'd love to see half an hour of a chunk of film talking about what happens to the characters and what happens in the middle of the movie a little bit, because they cut a lot of it, I think, because it felt really choppy to me, and I think a lot of it has to do with the writing, which I'll talk about in a second. I think I've talked enough about what I thought of the movie. I'd like to talk about the acting real quick, because I thought about how bad it was, for the most part. But first I want to talk about the directing and the writing. So the directors were Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, written by Justin Benson, and it starred Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. The reason that is, I did do some light research on this, like 5 minutes ago, like before I started filming this video, because I was curious, because I know that it was an independent film. Oh, my back. It says it's an independent film on Netflix. That's how I knew it was an independent film. So that means usually that it has a very low budget. Um, and it's basically a couple of filmmakers are like, you know what, I have an idea for a movie, let's make it, and then they have a very very small budget. And I was correct. They had a very small budget. And the reason that they had to do the director, the writer, and star in the film is because they didn't have enough money to pay separate actors or writers or directors, which A makes sense and B is very disappointing because I would have loved to see the two main characters played by almost anyone else. I couldn't feel engaged with them. The writing just felt so blocky. It was chunky. Like I don't like that much chunks in my dialogue. One line should lead to the next, should lead to the next, should lead to the next. This just felt like idea, 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 idea. And it was so boring for a very long time until they got into the switch of it, which is probably because they were like, oh, I have an idea about this camp where like, the time loops, and they're like, okay, how do we get there? They're like, I didn't think about that. Damn it! What do we do? Improv it. Just have a conversation. Here are a couple lines you can pull out of your pocket when you need them. It's not great. But the idea of the end of the film is so good. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I want you to go check it out yourself. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens. So go check that out. But anyway, let's talk about the acting real quick. So Aaron Moorhead is Aaron, and Justin Benson is Justin. First of all, they just called them by their own names. Wow. Really did not enjoy their performance almost at all. I think that they each had a couple moments where like they shone a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, they can act, and then they would just completely disengage me from the entire film by doing the weirdest, chunkiest dialogue I've heard almost out of any film, which is disappointing because this is a really cool idea. And I'm going to rate this pretty high. I always rate before I tell you what I'm going to give. Like, it's written down on my paper right here in front of me. When I write things down, it's because I do it for time. I haven't done it recently because I keep forgetting. But I always have my rating down. And I rated this pretty high, but just basically based on the idea and the ending of the film, which really was engaging and awesome and made me want more. But if I was only judging on the acting, it would have gotten probably like a D. Because the only good parts of this were Callie Hernandez as Anna and Tate Ellington as Hal. Now, these guys were really good. Callie was Anna, and she was really cool because she had this like mystery about her almost. That you're like, okay, she knows something, but will not tell anybody, which is really cool. I'm not going to tell you what she knows. And I don't even know for sure if she knows. I'm assuming she knows because of a couple lines that I heard in the film. And Tate Ellington as Hal was the best performance in the film. He's like the camp leader. And you never know if he's a good guy or a bad guy because you don't know exactly what's going on throughout the whole film. Which is why his character was so cool because, he got to play the good guy and the bad guy. And you never know who you're rooting for in this film. I was never rooting for the two main characters because I just didn't care about them. I was almost rooting for Hal, which is bad because he's kind of this good bad guy. Which is why I think that Ellington did such a great job. So with all this said, I'm going to give this film an A-, which I understand is very high given the amount of complaints that I had. I realize this is almost an entirely negative review. But the ending was worth it for me because I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the night probably. After this, I'm going to do some light research on what other people thought about this because I don't like to research before I do it because then I'm like giving you what other people thought, and I don't want them to trick my mind into thinking something that I didn't already originally think. These are my original thoughts and what I thought about the film. And I rated it pretty high because I think that the ending was really cool. And any film that makes me think is great because I spend probably like 70% of my day is sitting here watching movies and watching TV shows. And, a good, 70% of the time, I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. I learned nothing and got nothing out of that. I didn't learn anything about this, but I got something out of it, I feel like. I feel like I took off my headphones and was like, whoa. What exactly happened there? And I'm sure my brain will be messing around with that for a while. But anyway, next tomorrow morning I will have the Hush review up. Right? Yes, the Hush review up. Haven't watched it yet. I'm watching it tomorrow. Very excited. So tune in on there as we continue through Halloween week. Comment down below if there's anything you want me to review. Join the Facebook group and leave a like and subscribe. I was checking this morning, and this hopefully will change by the time this video comes out, but I was checking this morning and I saw that we had over 50 people on the Facebook group, but I only have 38 subscribers. So make sure you're subscribing to the channel. It helps a lot. You don't think it helps that much, but it lets me know that what I'm doing is correct and you like it and you want more. So always remember to just keep on watching some films and TV shows and such, and I will see you in the next Southern video.